What convinced me that we have a flat Earth is the star trails. And I say the star trails because, theoretically speaking, if we're on a rotating Earth, we should not have star trails. For example, pretend this is a merry-go-round, okay? Now pretend this guy is about to ride the merry-go-round. So we put him on the merry-go-round, and this white part right here, the white paper, is the sky. Okay, so if the guy is riding the merry-go-round, he would spin in circles, and we're about to show you what he would see. Because theoretically speaking, the Earth is spinning in circles, and this is the sky we're projected. Okay, so like I said, the paper represents the sky, this little guy represents a guy, and this represents the merry-go-round. Now, we're going to write what he would see after rotating. So these pencils right here, these basically represent 3 stars, okay? I know it's kind of complicated, but it's all going to make sense in a second. So instead of actually rotating him, I'm just going to put the marks right here, and I'm going to draw around the circle, okay? Because, like I said, he's rotating, okay? So this is what he would see. Or if he made a Star Trek video, this is what a Star Trek video would look like if he was rotating, looking at stars. Don't go left or right. I'll go left. Alright. Making it full circle, because you have to rotate one full time for one full day. And this is what he would see. I mean, obviously, you can do this experiment yourself, but you can see several intersection points, okay? And if we had more pencils, there would just be more intersection points, okay? Because, like I said, if he's rotating around, okay, and he's looking at the sky, and he made star trails, the star trails would intersect. So I'm going to circle some intersection points. There's one right here. I'm sorry for the camera shaking, by the way. There's one right here. There's one right here. There's one right here. So imagine if we had this, if I had a handful of pencils to represent a handful of stars, like, there would be intersection points freaking everywhere. But we don't see that. This is what we do see.
If you are confused, you're not the only one. I will try to make sense of it here. It seems to me that he thinks if the Earth is rotating and an observer looks at Polaris, watching a constellation like the Big Dipper go around it during the night, the star trails would intersect each other like this. Anyone with a brain can see the problem here. When constellations go around the celestial pole, they don't go around like that, they go around like this. In which case, the star trails would not intersect each other, and yes, this would also happen if the Earth is round and it rotates on a fixed axis.
Okay. This other one didn't really write too well.
If the Earth is flat, then the star trails would not be perfect circles for everyone on Earth, but they are. No matter where you are, stars will take a circular path across the sky.
Okay, so another issue Flat Earth has had is with the Southern Hemisphere. So I believe at Polaris, the spin is counterclockwise. So headed in that direction. But in the southern hemisphere, it's actually going clockwise. Well, there's a reason for that, and I'm about to explain it right now.
What? Perspective?
It's all due to perception. So, say we're going clockwise, okay? So basically, this is Polaris, okay? We have Polaris is right here, and around it we have a circle. We have another circle. These are just the rotations of the stars that are around it. We have another circle. We have another circle. And we have another circle. So imagine you're this guy, and the sky is above you, okay? So the sky's above him, okay? And now imagine this is flat Earth, okay? This is flat Earth. He's on flat Earth, the sky's above him, and I think Polaris is spinning, let me see, alright, so the sky's spinning this way. Okay. That probably forgot I did this. Now, from his perspective, if he's looking up at the sky, if he's looking directly up at the sky, and now let's say he goes to the southern hemisphere, okay? So he's going to the southern hemisphere, and he's looking at this direction of the sky, okay? So what he's going to see is, since he's so far out south, as you see, he's so far out south, because this is north, the middle is north, and the outside is south on the flat Earth. But since he's so far out south, he's not going to see the direct middle. Instead, he's just going to see the outer ring. Okay. So let me draw more rings. Because due to perspective, he's going to see. So right now, if he was in the north, if he was in the middle, like I said, he would see all of this. But since he's in the south,
that is completely wrong. People on the southern hemisphere do see complete, full, circular star trails, not just half of them. And the stars making the star trails are completely different stars that cannot be seen from the northern hemisphere. They also appear to rotate around the celestial pole in the opposite direction. This simply cannot happen if the Earth is flat.
only going to see these rings, okay? And they're going anti-clockwise, so they're going in this direction. Now you're saying, well, that doesn't solve the problem, because in reality, we don't see the stars going in that direction in the southern hemisphere. In fact, we see them going the opposite direction. Well, let me show you the illusion, okay? So, what shape is he seeing? He's seeing a half circle, okay? Half circle, okay? So now, I'm about to show you perspective of what a half circle looks like from his perspective, okay? So he's looking out of the sky, and he's looking at a half circle, okay? So now let's look at what he sees, okay? Okay, so I know this isn't much, this is not really a straight line, but it just gives you some perspective. Now remember, we are going, the rotation of this thing is counterclockwise, okay? So it's going counterclockwise. And from his, and since the stars are above him, this is what he would see. And one more time, as you can see, I'm drawing the counterclockwise motion. But what does it look like it's doing? It looks like it's going like upward.
When you look at star twirls, they always make perfect circular paths, not parabolas like this one. So what you are now have done is actually disproven your own ideas of how star twirls work.
So the last problem we have with the flat Earth model is the fact that the lunar eclipse somehow looks reddish. And my theory on that is, people think that in the flat Earth model that the sun and the moon orbit at the same speed. Okay, if they orbit at the same speed, there'd be a bunch of issues. But basically, I think that the sun actually is faster than the moon, okay? So, but anyways, I'm not going to estimate because I don't know the exact numbers, but if the sun rotates faster than the moon, that means eventually the sun would catch up with the moon. If the sun catches up with the moon, then boom, we have a collision. And if we have a collision, then obviously we don't see that in reality. We don't see the sun and the moon collide. So this is why I also feel that the sun is on a different path. I feel like the moon just takes that plain circular path, but the sun takes a more Fibonacci path. I think I pronounced that wrong, but basically it's even like yin-yang pattern, like that little I'll draw it for you. Kind of like a better version of that. But basically, what happens during a solar so what happens during a solar eclipse is obviously the sun rotates. It's at a far distance, and then the moon is in front of it. Okay, so boom, solar eclipse, easy. Now what happens during a lunar eclipse, I think that it's the sun that is at its furthest point away from the moon as it possibly can be, which turns the moon red. Now I'll say this because, to my knowledge, red light rays travel the farthest. And I think you can go ahead and fact check me on that. If that's the case, then it would make sense that the sun would, when it's at its furthest point away from the moon, the only light rays it can give to the moon are the red light rays. That's why the moon turns red.
If you looked at the moon over the course of a few weeks, you'd probably notice that it looks slightly different every day. The change in its shadow is based on where the moon is in its orbit. We call this cycle the phases of the moon, and it occurs roughly once a month. At least twice a year, however, something quite different happens. The moon passes through the shadow cast by the Earth, causing it to look extremely unusual for a short period of time. From the Earth, the moon will appear to darken and turn a deep red before eventually returning to normal. This is called a lunar eclipse. If we were to look at what happens from space during an eclipse, it would go something like this. First, the moon passes through what's called the penumbra, where the sun's light is only partially obscured. This results in only a slight darkening of the moon. As the moon continues along its path, however, it enters what's called the umbra, where all direct light from the sun is blocked. But if the sun is blocked, why does the moon turn red? When light from the sun goes by the side of the Earth, it passes through a long and thick layer of Earth's atmosphere. Shorter wavelengths of sunlight, like blue, are scattered by the atmosphere, so by the time the light has finished its trip to the moon, more of the longer wavelengths, like red, are left over. On the Earth, the same thing happens at sunset as the ground you stand on gradually passes into night. As the eclipse ends, the moon leaves the umbra, returns to its normal color, and then leaves the penumbra, brightening and resuming its original cycle. Overall, the whole process lasts only from a few minutes to a few hours, so you'll have to be quick if you want to see it. But, as long as you're willing to stay awake, you'll catch the moon as you won't see it too often.
But yeah, I hope this solved the major questions of Flat Earth. If you have any other questions about Flat Earth, just leave it in the comment section.